You're sitting safe and sound, and someone says that a monster is going to attack you. And before you move, you get killed, you in the place where you're is destroyed. You call 911, but no one can protect you except one thing, only the huge gorilla Kong and Godzilla. That's exactly what happens in the movie Godzilla vs. Kong, The New Empire. It is one of the best sci-fi thriller movies that was released in 2024, and it's not as cliched as most movies in this genre. It starts with Kong running in a place called Hollow Earth, and if you don't know Hollow Earth, it's a world with portals to Earth, and Monarch Corporation put Kong there so that he can live. But Kong was running around with a lot of monsters chasing him and running away from them until he reached a cliff where he couldn't move, and when they tried to attack him, they fell into something like a hole or a strange trap. When they tried to attack him again, he grabbed one of them and cut him in half in front of them, spilling blood all over Kong's body, and the rest of them got scared and ran away. Then Kong goes to take a bath and squawks, and hears a squawking sound like his own, and is happy that he finally found someone like him, only to find a frog imitating the sounds he hears. Afterward, he sits down and gets upset. Then we see Island giving a lecture and saying that we always thought we were alone on Earth until we realized that there were many giant monsters attacking us, but there are also some giants that protect us. Unfortunately, when Kong comes to Godzilla, Godzilla thought that he's a giant wants to attack us, and that's why we were able to separate Kong and the Hollow Earth. As long as they stay away from each other, Godzilla protects us from any alien attack. Then we see Godzilla fighting a giant crab that's trying to destroy the city. He destroys the city as well while he is fighting the crab. In the end, he killed the other creature, and then he goes to sleep in the Colosseum building. Then we go to the lab that is in charge of the giants, and they say that something strange is happening in the hollow floor, which is the first time we've seen it. And then there is writing on the equipment, and they take it and show it to the manager and tell her that something strange is happening. Then someone comes in and says that Italy's defense minister is complaining about Godzilla, and they reply that if it wasn't for Godzilla, Italy would have been flattened already. Then we see Ellen's daughter at school alone, not knowing how to fit in, not knowing how to talk to anyone, and entering her class in silence until the class starts. She starts seeing feathers in the air and strange things, and she starts drawing while she doesn't feel like she's consciously drawing, and then we see all the kids standing around her. They say, "What is wrong with you?" and find her drawing the same thing on the paper, on the disc, on everything. Then they call her mother and say, "Doctor, your daughter's grades are dropping. She can't get along with her classmates, and we can't understand her." Then she says, "I'm trying to understand her too, but she's the last of the U tribe, so she might not fit in and just needs time." Then we see the girl talking to her mother, and she says, "I don't feel like this is my place, and I feel like something is wrong with me." She says, "There's nothing wrong with you, you're not wrong or anything, you're fine." She said, "It doesn't seem like I am fine. My teachers, you and my grades, everything is pointing that I am not okay." Then we see Ellen at home, trying to understand what happened today, and she realizes that her daughter's drawings are similar to the drawings made by the devices in the lab. Then we see the equipment in the lab actually picking up something, and we see a disaster happening, but the person in charge of the equipment is still asleep, until the girl wakes up in a panic, as if she had seen what was happening in the hollow earth and was shaking her head. Ellen comes in and finds her in the basement, sitting in the tent, and she asks her what's going on. She says, "I'm having a weird dream. I feel like I'm going crazy and something's wrong." Then we see that Eileen went to Florida to a radio announcer from home, and he was recording and didn't want to open the door, but when she started knocking hard, he got up and said, "I'll kill the person who was knocking." Then he sees Dr. Ellen, and he says, "I'm glad to see you." She says, "I'm here because I know you're obsessed with the hollow earth and all things related to giants, and you're going to help me." He says, "Sure, if I can." And then she says, "My daughter drew that, and the lab equipment made that." And he says, "Oh, they're really similar. My equipment also makes that." After a lot of analysis, I realized that these signals always come before a major disaster, and I think this is a distress call. She said, "From who?" He said, "I don't know." Then she says, "Help me find out what's happening to the girl and I'll do whatever you want." He says, "That's a good deal. I'm really tempted to go to the hollow earth." And she walks away and leaves him to catch up what was waiting for her. What was waiting for her is the news that Godzilla had gotten up and started moving, meaning he felt threatened. And then we see Ellen's daughter drawing in her room. She senses that something is wrong and looks at Kong's doll in her room. So we know that Kong is coming out of the hole that leads to the hollow earth. He comes out exhausted and sleeps on the beach, and then Island's daughter tells them, he is okay, he just has a bad tooth. Then we see a plane fly over and put him under full anesthesia, and after he is fully sedated, Dr. Prebar gets off the plane, removes the tooth, and installs a new metal one. He says, "That's it, it's done." Then he goes to Ellen and tells her, "I haven't seen you since you said you weren't going to get married because I want to have my degree first." She said, "I got 2 degrees. What is important is that I finished my job and this tooth will stay good." And then Kong fell asleep from fatigue, and the girl told them that the new tooth is good and comfortable for him. Then we see the announcer talking to Island, and he says, "When I analyzed what you said before, it was exactly like I told you. These are distress signals, but we don't know from whom. And any disaster that happened before was preceded by these calls, so it means that something big is going to happen." She says, "Are Godzilla and Kong going to fight here, and while we are watching and dying?" He says, "I honestly don't know." And then Aline goes to Principal Hampton. She tells her that there's a language we don't know that sends out a distress call every time there's a major event, and we have to go to the Hollow Earth. She says, "Why?" She says, "I don't know, but the writer decided we should go there. Maybe we'll find something." Then we see the pilot getting ready to pick them up, and the doctor who likes Ellen goes with them. Her daughter told her, "I'm coming with you. I'm not staying here." Island refuses at first, but after a while she says, "It's okay, just hear me out and don't stay away from me." She says, "Don't worry." Then we see the announcer saying, "Did you forget the deal or what, doctor? You promised me you would do anything. Take me with you. This is my dream. And there are many people who are doubting my research, and I want to prove them wrong." She told him to go ahead, and then told the pilot to get him a seat with them, and then Kong jump off at the gate and they follow him as well. It was a very strange pathway, as if they're traveling through time, and then they find themselves with Kong on the ground, and they're surprised with the way ground looks. Then Kong goes home and they find themselves in the middle of huge birds, and the doctor tells them, "These are predators, but don't worry as long as we're quiet. But when we don't, they will attack us, and we can hide by changing our color to the same color as them." On the other hand, on Earth, there are soldiers complaining that Godzilla has entered a nuclear area and destroyed it, and the whole place is full of radiation, and he's absorbing all the radiation and we don't know what he's going to do with it. But there is a big deal coming. Godzilla even starts attacking the airplanes. Then we go back to the Hollow Earth and they find their base with smoke coming out of it. They come closer and find it completely destroyed and say, "How did this happen? We've been in this place for years and this has never happened." Then the doctor tells them, "I found a camera that could help us get some info." And then they see a bloody palm sign on the wall and say, "This must be a calamity." They get on the airplane quickly before the creature that did this comes back, and then we see that Kong has arrived home but feels strangely out of place. He goes down and near the place where he was killing monsters in the beginning of the movie, only to feel a strange radiation and take his axe and go down. Then he finds himself in a new place in the ground, all foggy, and finds skulls of gorillas like himself there. In the middle of the fog, he sees the shadow of a huge ape like himself, and then the shadow gets smaller and smaller until he finds a small ape. He holds out his hand in joy. Then the ape bites his hand. After that, another gorilla comes along and starts punching him, and he grabs them and knocks them both because he is much stronger than them. And then he takes the little one and threatens him to take him to their house or the place where all the gorillas are. The little one refuses, but Kong tells him to follow his words so he don't kill him. And then we see the people in the plane, the gasoline runs out, and the plane lands on the nearest they can get. The announcer starts filming the place and says that this is a land that has never been touched by humans, or lived in it. And the doctor says, "You're talking to who?" He said, "This is a documentary. I'm talking to my audience." Then they try to contact the base to rescue them, and in the meantime they see a lot of mosquitoes in the area. In the middle of their walk, the doctor says, "I don't like this road. It smells like rotten meat in here." The pilot said, "Why? Are you standing in front of beef restaurant?" The devices doesn't signal anything wrong, so let's continue. He doesn't even finish his sentence when a plant swallows the pilot in seconds and they run away. The announcer starts to break down, but the doctor says, "Calm down, nothing's going to happen, it's okay, we're fine. Just take it easy." They continue on their way. Then we see Godzilla on Earth wreaking havoc, moving from his place and jumping into the sea, because he moves between places through the sea. We find out that he's going to the Arctic Sea to a giant who lives there and is also radioactive, so if he kills her and absorbs her radiation, he'll be horribly radioactive, but we still don't know what he'll do with all that radiation. Then we move to Ellen and her companions walking, and they come across a carved stone, and as long as there are stones made in a certain way, you know that there was a human here. Then we know that the Yui civilization was here, and they read the words that are written and come up with normal words that don't make much sense, and then the doctor finds the symbol of a giant insect. Then Island tell us that this is the symbol of the insect, the mistress of all the giants. Then he press on a stone in the wall when he sees an illuminated insect was around it, and when he inserts the stone into the wall, the water begins to fall and collect in the ground where they are standing. Then the doctor finds a strange thing that looks like a placenta and tells them that it's an electrical network, and he shakes it, and it all lights up and electricity runs through it. After that, he goes close and opens it, and a light comes out of the air, and they all entered. And the announcer was afraid and told them don't enter because they don't know what's going on. But he didn't want to be alone, so he went in with them. Then we see Kong walking behind the little gorilla until they reach a lake that looks beautiful. The little gorilla drinks and washes his body with water, and Kong does the same. And we see something moving in the water, and we know that the little gorilla has ambushed Kong to get rid of him. A big snake living in the lake tries to kill Kong, and Kong tries to block him. And the little gorilla, while running away, finds Kong's axe, knocking him down and pulls him up and says, "Respect yourself." Kong eats the snake that he killed, and he finds the boy sitting on the ground and treating himself by eating from the grass until Kong cuts off a piece of the snake and gives it to the little gorilla, and the gorilla can't believe what he's doing. Then we see Godzilla take out an underground submarine that was in his way as he was going to attack the giant in the Arctic. The giant was going to kill Godzilla, but it didn't work because his name was written on the movie cover, and he killed her and absorbed her radiation to enter the place where she was hiding. Then we see Yui's people holding Ellen, and they don't know if they're going to kill them. But when they saw the girl with them, they shut up and took them to the queen. And when they entered, they found the place strange and full of radioactive crystals that looked good and had energy. Then the queen came and asked for the girl, and Island didn't want to let her go, so they locked Ellen up and took the child to the queen. And we know that these people don't talk. They communicate through mind reading and intellectual communication. The queen touches the girl's hand and sees everything happen to her, and knows that Ellen honored her and did her best with her. Then she commands to put down their weapons, and we see them calling Island and letting them know that they are the ones who sent out the previous distress calls, and this one too, for an important reason. They say that there is an oppressive gorilla king who wants to rule the surface in any way he can, that he has slaves in the land of fire, and that his fights with Godzilla would have killed Godzilla. The giants were all protecting the earth, but this gorilla was the outlier. Then we see Kong walking with the kid to a lava field on a dinosaur skeleton, and he goes and finds a lot of gorillas in the area. But they are not like him. They are gorillas who work as slaves and are physically and psychologically tired. The little gorilla says hello to his father, and his father reassures him. Then one of the guards from the rebel monkey, Scar, snarls and beats one of the slaves until Kong gets close to him and hits the guard. The guard gets up and goes to call out to Scar, who is tall, thin with a red hair. He walks up to Kong, touches him, and laughs at him. He has a chain on his back made of an animal bones that he killed and using it as a weapon. Then he looks at the little boy who brought Kong here and is still going towards him to deal with him. But the child's father comes near and begs him to let him go. Scar throws the child's father into the lava and kills him in front of the child. And Kung gets furious. He strikes him, and Scar hits him back with his weapon, and they keep fighting for a while among the other gorillas until Kong finally is closer to win. Scar controls his whip with a crystal at the end of it, so one of the giants, the monster Shimo, comes out, and she has the ability to freeze anything with her breathing, begins to blow until she freezes Kong's hands completely. He then tries to run away by breaking the ice on his hand because he's not in a good position, and Scar sends his men after him. The queen explains that Scar has decided to utilize a great power which is controlling the giant Shimo through pain, and he is scaring the gorillas and will use her in his war against humans. They said, "Oh, that's why Godzilla is getting ready on Earth when he sensed danger so he can prepare for when the apes come out. It's going to be World War III. She said, "Oh, but if we can awaken the Queen of the Giants, she will help him defeat them. The Queen will need to be summoned by a chosen one from the people of Iwi." We return to Kong running from Scar's guards with an injured arm, and we realize that he's trying to run through the traps he set for a situation like this. And every time he jumps over a trap, a few of them die when they fall into it. Then we see him reach the dead end and he's pretending that he is cornered. But he was really just trying to get their attention so they wouldn't find out his trap. But unfortunately, they found out. The next thing we know, stones fall from above on the guards, and we realize that the little monkey helped him because he gave him food before and tried to protect his father, while at the same time avenging his father's death. However, we see Godzilla trying to pull all the radioactive material he can from the giant's house he just fought with. And when he's done, he gets out of there. Then we see Iwi again, and the announcer looking at her with Island looks at her daughter, while she is playing with the kids and saying that her daughter belongs to this world. Then the doctor says to the announcer, "What are you doing?" He says, "I am filming." They're lifting a stone that weighs about a ton, and they must be using the pyramids above to play with gravity and move stones or objects with it. And then the doctor says, "Don't you feel upset when all this is destroyed? You can't show these videos to anyone. They are isolated people. Any humans among them will get destroyed. You have to preserve the beauty and purity of this place." Then we see them open the gate to Kong. They thought that he must have come when he sensed Island's daughter because they are related. They are surprised by the little monkey with him, and when he entered saw his injured hand. Then one of Scar's guards, who had been following them, recognized the place, saw the gravity pyramids and the gates, and decided to inform Scar about that. The little monkey lets them treat Kong and goes off to keep an eye on the place. Then we see the guard come back to Scar to report what he's seen, and Scar gathers his army and takes Shimo until he gets to Iwi. Then we see them trying to figure out a solution to Kong's hand, and the doctor says to Ellen, "Why don't you try the project that wasn't completed before? We had it at the base, I think." The announcer said, "What kind of project?" They said, "It's a project we were working on because Kong is an ally, and we wanted to make him stronger than anyone and give him an armor. But the government decided to stop it because we don't want to create a powerful giant." Then we see the doctor going to get the armor, coming back with it, dropping it off, anesthetizes Kong, then putting the armor on his hand and saying, "We don't know if it's going to work for him or not. When Kong tries it on, we'll know." And as soon as he does, he's jumping around in it while he's very happy. He gets ready to get revenge on Scar, and Kong has a great idea to go to Earth, bring Godzilla behind him, and fight the monsters and Scar. He actually goes to the pyramids in Egypt and waits. Meanwhile, Godzilla is in Gibraltar, moving to Egypt to meet Kong there. At the same time, we see Aline's daughter trying to awaken the Queen of the Giants to help them in their war and unite all the monsters under her flag. And finally, she is able to summon her, and the Queen appears with her huge size and golden color. And they are very happy, and they send her to stop the war that will happen between Kong and Godzilla, who have met at the pyramids. They broke them like a small cube. Every time one of them hit a pyramid, something flew off, until thankfully the Queen of Giants came and stopped them. Then she takes them and walks away, only to see that the people in the hollow earth are in a bad situation. Scar and his men came to kill them, because they are completely unprotected. But then we see the doctor take his plane and fight with the birds and bring them back to disrupt Scar's army. Yui was trying to change the gravity to send Scar and his army to crash into the ceiling, but Scar has frozen the pyramids. The doctor takes the people in his plane, and after he takes them away, he realizes that the plane is going to crash due to the change in gravity. Meanwhile, Kong and Godzilla are fighting next to each other for the first time, walking towards Scar and Shimo and beating them up. The Giant's Queen moves in to save the airplane that was about to crash, and then a war begins between Scar, Shimo, and his army against Godzilla, Kong, and the Queen. Even the little monkey gets in on the action, until Scar spots the portal to Earth and tries to go there, and Kong tries to stop him. We then cut to a nice quiet beach in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and see the whole chaos going on there as they start fighting among people and buildings, destroying everything in their path. And we see Shimo freezing in the sky, not knowing why, to be honest, but it's any sort of destruction. After some beating from here to there, Scar lost his chain and then breaks it, controlling Shimo through the small crystal. But with the beating, it fell off, and Kong was trying to reach it, but couldn't, until the little monkey says it's time for the movie to end and breaks the crystal, causing a huge explosion, after which Kong grabs Scar and kicks his ass hard. We see that Shimo is back to normal and no one is controlling her. She freezes Scar, and then Kong kills him while he's frozen. Then, Godzilla brings the sky back to normal and they can all return to the hollow earth. Island tells her daughter, "I know this is your people and your life, I'm not mad at you, and I want you to know that I always love and support you." She said, "What nonsense, Mom? I'm coming with you. I will not stay there." Then she goes with her, and we see Godzilla is back to the earth to protect her from any attack. Kong, along with Shimo and the little gorilla, return to the gorillas and live among them, helping them after finally meeting people who look like him and can live and interact with them. If you want us to summarize any movie for you, let us know, and make sure we look at all comments. And anyone who made it this far, we love you.